Alright, CNT125. This is our module on troubleshooting. All semester long in our lab, there's been little troubleshooting hints and tips and even sections on troubleshooting that I've been trying to give you lots of tools as the semester goes to start looking for and being able to fix basic problems on your own. This module, we're going to try to take all those pieces and pull them together and talk about a way that we can use all these pieces to start troubleshooting some basic network problems. So, first thing, we have to mention the kind of thing that a book would tell you on troubleshooting methods. Most books or most certifications have a method kind of like what I'm going to show you here. The first thing I always say is identify the problem. So you try to gather as much information you can on what is actually a problem. A lot of people, a lot of customers and users will say things like, the internet's broken. And it's one of my running jokes. What you need is more information on what is not working. And those are the pieces, those are the symptoms you can use to start seeing, okay, it's probably not this, probably not this, probably not this. Let's zero in on maybe this. So then step 2 is establish a theory for what might be going on. And don't assume. Don't assume that it's A, B, or C. You want to think about every possibility and try to rule out the non-obvious ones and focus on what is probably the issue. But don't discount things like is the cable in the right port and that sort of thing. Step 3, test the theory. So test it, and if you change something, just change that thing and then try it. And then if that's not working, change another thing and try it. And after you've tried a couple things, you're obviously taking notes. And if need be, you escalate that. You escalate that to maybe the next level of IT team in your crew. 4, establish an action plan. If it's something bigger, you might need to plan for the solution. If it's something bigger, you might actually have to plan for after hours where you replace the PC or do something significant on the router or the firewall that might affect everybody in the company. 5, implement a solution or escalate the problem. So now you actually, how am I going to do it? But you have to have a plan of what you're going to do and what's your backup if things aren't working or if you need to revert. Step 6, verify once you've done that test. Test, make sure things are working correctly. And then 7, document. What did we do? What was the problem? What did we try? ABC. What actually worked? And what have we done since then to maybe keep that from happening in the future? That is the kind of model that most books or certification exams use, and they often show some sort of flowchart like so of how I could work through those to nail down or get to my problem. This is all valuable information. This is very useful information. This is the kind of information that on certification exams they're looking for you to be able to answer. A method we can use, especially in the labs right now during this semester, is the layer 0 to layer 7 kind of thing. Start at layer 0, check your power. I joke layer 0, but check your power. Make sure things are powered. As you've learned all semester, when you have a lab room with lots of racks on, same with the data closet, you have lots of racks and equipment on. Sometimes it's hard to hear if a piece of equipment is actually on. So you need to look for the link lights. You might even need to put your hand on it to see, is the fan spinning and vibrating to know if this thing is functioning. Step 2, check your physical layer, check your cables. Check 3, layer 2, check your data link layer, your interfaces. Layer 3, now you're checking IP addresses. Layer 4, you're checking firewalls and upper layer applications, that kind of thing. So go from the simple to the more complex. That usually works for you guys at this point in your IT career. Start with the simple stuff and work to the harder stuff. That's a method we could use. So what I'm going to do in this podcast is start walking you through that process. And I actually put another, here's the OSI model going this way, here's the TCP/IP model. So you're starting physical and so forth and working your way up. What I'm going to do in this podcast now is start walking you through these layers and the kinds of things you would be checking at each layer. But to make it a little more usable, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more applicable, if you will, I actually have on this page where we have the podcasts, here's the PowerPoint. Once I'm done, the podcast will be listed here. I actually have a link to a packet tracer file that I have a series of things broken in. Feel free to download this and do these solutions along with me while you're listening or watching the podcast. Feel free to do this. If not, that's fine. But this is what I have. It is actually this network that we have. You see a lot of red lights on it already. There's a lot of things broken in here. This is what we're going to slowly bring online, and we're going to try to systematically go from layer 0 up to layer 7 to bring this thing fully functional online. That's what I'm going to be using these podcasts. Feel free to download and do it with me if you wish. It is really up to you. So, let's start with layer 0. What kinds of things are we thinking about and checking at layer 0? Well, I know the name's kind of silly, but is the thing powered? What else might be included in layer 0? How else would I verify layer 0? Well, what all is included? Things like power cords, power bricks, the power distribution units in the rack, UPSs. I've had UPSs that the battery themselves have failed and needed to replace the battery. You literally take the front off and, disconnect the battery, pull it out, put a new one in. So, you don't rule those things out. The actual power switches themselves, reset buttons on things, circuit breakers, these are all things part of layer 0. These are the things that you're thinking, if this thing is not on, what is going on? And as you get into PCs and servers, you have fans and things like that, that if the fan's not working, usually the device does not boot because it's not cooling the microprocessor, etc., etc. So I'm thinking all of these things as to why maybe something's not functioning at the power layer. I might need to dig into actual meters, checking outlets and that sort of thing. Are we getting voltage? If I have reoccurring weird problems, you might actually need to connect a voltage, what do I have here? A vent recorder. There we go. Voltage event recorder. This actually records the voltage over time that you could leave it in over the course of a day or two and see, are we getting lots of fluctuations? Are we getting a lot of sags? What's going on? Why things are shutting off or rebooting? That sort of thing. You might actually need to go to that realm. This is the kind of stuff at layer 0. Okay. Now, I'm going to jump over my packet tracer file over here, and I see, actually real quickly, here's our network that we're going to bring online. We have a couple workstations, laptop access points, some IP phones. Here's our switch, here's our router. Very reminiscent of a lot of the labs we've been doing this semester. I have some names and passwords over here. I have some names and passwords over here. Here's our VLANs, okay? We have the ports showing. Off on the right is an ISP, so we're not going to mess with this, but this is acting as our, internet connection, if you will. There is a DNS server over here. There's two different web servers. There's even FTP server and Telnet SSH server. These are all things we could be able to browse to and or ping or Telnet or SSH to test our network. Now, that's the logical view. If we go to the physical view, it's all located in one city. I put the ISP in one building. So if I open that up and look, here's the rack of all that equipment. Again, we're not going to mess with this. This is our test area, but just showing you that all the servers and router and switch are in one rack. Our network that we're trying to work on is actually over in this building over here. So I'm going to go to this one, Corporate Office Center. Here's the main wiring closet. I have this set up kind of reminiscent of your lab tables you've been using all semester. Here's our router, here's our switch, here's a computer and phone, kind of like, very much like you'd have your lab table set up. And I even tried to set it up where things are showing, all the cables are showing like you'd be hooking up your lab station, okay? So, with that in mind, we want to check layer 0. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to look. I don't see blinking link lights on my router. I do see some on the switch. And over here, I'm looking at my PCs. I do see a link light on the PC. I do see a link light on the PC. Okay. As I look at my phones, I see a power brick plugged in here, just like our lab tables. I don't see one plugged in here. So I'm going to open that guy up, drag my power brick in and plug it in. Okay. And we're going to hopefully see that thing start to boot. Okay, I can actually click on this and see the front of it. If I click on the front of this guy and see it's actually it's powered. This is working on trying to boot up. It's not getting config. I'll look at this guy. He's actually working on trying to boot. Okay, so we got power to both of them. If I go back out to my logical, I would start to see hopefully, yeah, I'm starting to see some kind of link lights here. Okay, let's go to our rack over here. Again, I do have link lights on the switch. I don't have on the router, so I'm going to click on the router. and look at here's the physical view. And as I look at it now, let's zoom in here a little bit. It looks like that power switch is off. I'm going to try to flip that. Ooh, I see a link light come on there and actually a power light come on there. As I look at my rack now, I'll give it a minute to see if we get some link lights here. So I'm actually going to speed up time. And I do. I get a link light there now. If I do logical, yeah, I'm getting a link light here, getting a link light here. Okay, so the router was off, and I had a cable unplugged on my phone. But it looks like everything else at layer 0 is best as we can get it. Okay, so layer 0, I'm looking for power cords, I'm looking at switches, I'm looking at those kind of things, making sure things are powered. That's the kind of stuff I'm checking at layer 0. Next podcast, we'll move on to layer 1.